Welcome everybody to another Fresh Start Alumni webinar. This time we have the chus of having Rabbi Avrohom Bleich. Rabbi Bleich has been working behind the scenes up until recently with Fresh Start, and then as of recently, in front of the scenes, having joined us at Fresh Start with one of our most recent groups. So Rabbi Bleich is well familiar with the topic of trauma and the challenges that many people who call Yisroel go through. So it's an honor to have you with us, Rabbi Bleich.
Okay, first of all, it's an honor and a chus to have me. It's definitely an honor and a chus to be here. Now that we know that nobody's face is being shown on YouTube, anyone can feel free to show their face, which just is help to me to see people, to see faces, to see who I'm talking to, if you feel comfortable, of course. But like Yochanan said, having been in Fresh Start, that being in the place with a group, like I said at that time to them, it was very much of a humbling experience to be with people who are raw and real and vulnerable. And different people are on here now who are in different places and stages relative to their Fresh Start experience. Some of you were there a week or two ago. Some of you were there a year or two ago and have gone wherever each of you individually has gone through this time. But all of you, common denominator, have been in an experience like that one, where you meet up with your own self. I was in the Fresh Start building. Yochanan said I was involved behind the scenes. I was in the Fresh Start building before there was a Fresh Start. I was in the Fresh Start building outside of Fresh Start, where nobody was there. To me, the name of the room where everyone sits, I don't know what it's officially called over there, the name where the room where everything happens, but to me, it was always called the Kodesh HaKadoshim. That's how I refer to it. Like, oh, I saw the Kodesh HaKadoshim. To me, it's not even, it's a regular part of the way that I relate to that place. It is the Kodesh HaKadoshim to me, by the way, because it's a place where human beings meet up with themselves, which may be appropriate for this time of the year, and the subject matter is very close to what it is to meet up with the Yerusholayim. It starts with meeting up with yourself first. And that outside of Fresh Start and places where amazing miracles happen, like they do in Fresh Start, and if there are any other places like that, there are definitely individual rooms with individual people where that happens. In a group setting of Alumni Eden, I don't know where else that happens. But where those things happen, that people meet up with themselves, is the only place really where it's real. It's real. That's called meeting up with the Yerusholayim. Because wherever you are on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, or any other day of the year, actually, the easy part is for a man, put on a talis and shakel and shul, which could have in it gewaltige Sachen. It could be very powerful, it could be extremely meaningful, it could be very deep, but it is not necessarily so. You can daven with a lot of kavanah and even with tears, but not really be present within yourself. And anyone who has never met themselves, it's hard to conceive how you can be present in such a type of situation. So it's a little strange, it sounds a little new age to say that being in a place like Fresh Start is a piece of Yiddishkeit. But it is a piece of Yiddishkeit. It's a piece of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur every day, whichever day it is. Rosh Hashanah and Kippur are not limited per se. There are calendar dates where we're called upon to be involved in this type of meeting, an encounter with ourselves and the Yerusholaim, but it doesn't mean it can't happen on other days, and it does happen on other days. It does, for people who take the tough, vulnerable step of taking down their own walls. That's from our side of it. From the Yerusholaim side of it, again, I feel like words sometimes do not suffice, especially since they've become so cliched sometimes that they sometimes are just words with no meaning behind them. So we speak about that Yerusholayim loves everyone despite anything, and for when you feel it with a human being and with a Yid yourself, once you have a better idea what it actually means, and it no longer needs to be Ani Ma'amed Ben Muna Shlema, that the Yerusholayim loves everyone and judges everyone favorably because you feel it yourself. And then when you do, you know what that's like a little bit. And then you could be Ma'amed Ben Muna Shlema in Yisroel, like the Baal Shem Tov, who said that nobody could imagine how much the Yerusholayim loves a Yid. Okay, that's beyond. But at least you have a base to start with. And which brings me back just a year, actually, to a story I was personally involved in, where somebody, mamish at such a time, in Kippur, was needed to be out in a distant place, alone, for rehab treatment, alone in a lot of ways, but especially for the purpose of what I'm saying right now, alone without any Yidden at all, anywhere around, alone in a place where Yom Kippur was not going to be felt, seen, heard, experienced, remembered at all. Nothing was going to bring Yom Kippur to that place. And that's where it needed to be. And that's what the Rebbeinu wanted in that moment. But it wasn't going to be a Yom Kippur. But I had the chus to be in touch with this person. And I said, I said, you're going to be, I don't know what's going to be happening with you, or where you're going to be at, or what your life is going to look like in that place, or what your possibilities will be, but do you have anything that has to do with Yom Kippur? Do you have a machzor there? Do you have anything? And this person said, what's in the gear? It's not in the gear. Who cares? I'm not in that place right now. It's not in the gear. I don't care. Which, again, tachlis, it wasn't in the gear. And what had to be happening at that time was what was happening. But we managed to get a hold of the Lubavitcher Shliach somewhere not far, who Berev Tzidkusai, like, should give the credit where it's due to so many such Lubavitcher Shliachim, on Erev Yom Kippur, came, said he'll go, and he went with some food and a machzor, and brought it there. And I made contact afterwards and said, you may not care if it is or isn't Yom Kippur, or whether you had any exchange of words about that at all. Aber du bist eine jüdische Tochter, you're a Yiddish kind, and I care, and we care. And you're still part of us. You're still one of us. It doesn't matter if in the place you're at, you can't feel or experience that, or worry about that, or be occupied with that. But we're occupied with you. And those weren't words, that was the absolute truth, which came probably with its fair amount of tears. But when you experience that, you know that that's the Rebbeinu feeling to every Yid at this time of the year, which is, where are you at yourself? The person has a right to be honest with themselves, by the way. Not everything has to be just gentle coddling. Sometimes it's called for more, less, whatever it is. But wherever you're at, the Rebbeinu will still be saying, if a Yid could say it, the Rebbeinu definitely says it, you may not be able to care at this point. You may not be able to be in a place where it matters that much to you at this point, but you matter to me. And you're one of us, and I want you in. In general, the idea of a person being able to see their own truth outside of religion also is something that is inspiring and is something that brings to true joy and contentment even within pain. I just sat with a Yid here today. He's not into religion. He's a from Yid. Not into religion. It's not what we talk about. He was talking about himself and only himself. But at some point, a certain wall within himself came down, and he felt like he's facing the fact that it's hard for him to sit in and sit with feelings of regret, of guilt, with himself, with his own life, with where he may have gone wrong, with whatever mistakes he may have made, financially, personally, whatever, nothing to do with religion, like I said. And then he said, you know, I'm in a business where I'm a boss. I'm a manager, I'm a supervisor, I oversee other people. And he says, I don't have a problem with people making mistakes. I have no problem with that at all. I see people for who they are and for what they are. Terrific. You slipped up, you got this wrong, you made a mistake, no problem. Acknowledge it. Let's see what we can do to fix it. It's all good. Doesn't take you down in any way. Now, again, like I said, this is a Yid whose headspace is not in Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, religion, anything. But those were Rosh Hashanah and Kippur words right there, out of nowhere. The only person he can't feel that way with is himself. To sit in, okay, I feel guilty. I feel sorry. I feel regretful. Even I feel like an idiot. Made a mistake. I feel like a fool. I feel like a failure. These are all real words, by the way. Again, out of plain life. Financial decision, whatever it was. To sit in that goes instead, in his case, so in all of our cases, when we have to sit with something that hurts, to overthinking, to calculating, to stress, to being up in the middle of the night, waking up too early and not being able to fall back asleep because your mind is rehashing whatever it is, rather than sitting in what really hurts, which is, I feel guilt. I feel pain. And I can sit in that. And I don't have to run away. And I can tolerate that. Even though maybe I don't think I can. Maybe it's not what I'm used to. Maybe it scares me. But if I can, then what happens? 15 minutes later, he said he feels really happy. Feels really happy. But what? Did you just said it out loud for the first time almost in your life? He said, I failed. I was wrong. I made a mistake. How is that something that makes you happy? I don't know if we need the exact answer right this minute. We could have it. But I think it brings us to a place where maybe the $1 million question about Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur that everyone is asking is the same question, which is, how can it be that you have a time that has to do with taking stock, that has to do with accountability, and that has to do with joy? How can they both happen at the same time? But that's the whole Klal Yisrael. This is what we do. And on its face, it seems comical almost that we're...
Ask a question in the middle, because I'm feeling like we're all sitting here, everybody's survivors, everybody's been to Fresh Start, we're all very hard on ourselves. And what I'm hearing is you saying that us sitting down and acknowledging things that we've done wrong may be the way to happiness. And I'm like, don't we all do that? We criticize ourselves all day. Or are you saying, and I just need clarification about that, is being able to sit with your pain and sit with your real feelings. Because to say I failed, I did wrong, I did that, like we do that in our heads all the time. That's what we do. That's probably what he does. Like he doesn't give forgiveness to himself. So I just need clarification on what you were saying.
Yeah, I think forgiveness to ourselves comes with what you're saying, Tova, which is being able just to sit with what I'm feeling. What am I feeling? How do I feel about this? Right? It's not either I'll lie to everyone around or I'm automatically in my ability to handle, to contain, to face, to sit with whatever I feel. It could be, I don't lie. I'm hurting. But I have my ways of escaping that. Whatever their hurt or pain is about. We all have our go-to things when it comes to stress. Some of them are addictions. All of them are addictions, but some are addictions to substances and some are addictions to ways of going about things, right? We have a very famous word in English, workaholic. It's a regular word in English now, but it's obviously a composite of the word work and alcoholic, right? So we have our ways of avoiding distracting, etc., and escaping in whatever way. Sitting with pain for anybody, any human being, is a very difficult experience, very painful experience. But only by going there and facing those demons or other demons or whatever demons is there a way to be able to forgive oneself, feel it, and feel content and happy that, wow, I can do this. I can go there. It doesn't feel good not to be able to go there. It's not empowering to feel shut out of a part of our own selves because it hurts too much to go there. That's not empowering. What is empowering is the ability to not just hear words, but to be able to sit in those words and then be able to get up and say, it was liberating in a sense. I was shutting myself out of a piece of my heart because it hurt too much. So what's the jail? Is it a cell somewhere? No, it's a cell in myself. I can't go there. I shut the door. Sometimes I shut the door because I shut it on somebody else. And the price I pay is that I shut it on myself too. Sometimes the person I want to shut the door on in the first place is myself. I don't want to go there. Sometimes it's protecting myself from being safe from someone else. So we're out. We'll slam the door. But getting out of that place and getting into a place where we're able to sit with whatever it is, taking down walls is what it's about. Atova, before you go any further, hold a second. I actually think that what you said was extremely important, and it's a point that I mean to speak about in more than whatever I said, which is, yes, like I said before, being in places where a person is taking down their own walls any day of the year is a Rosh Hashanah and Kippur experience. Absolutely. So you say, all of us do that. Gewaltig. All of us do that. We're all in a place where we face our own stuff. Amazing. That's what it's all about. In other words, we're in Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, some of us, all year long, every day. It may be nothing new in certain ways. In other senses, all of us want to keep stretching, progressing, uncovering more, sitting with more, being with more, containing more. So some of us may feel Rosh Hashanah and Kippur is not a fit for me. I can't be there. Another way to look at it is Rosh Hashanah and Kippur is the place that I'm always at. If I see it not just as what some of us see it as, a day of punishment, a day of judgment, which is definitely one of the names, but the word judgment has a lot of meanings, or rather as a day of honesty, truth, vulnerability, which I think is the goal that many of the people who are sitting with us here today are living day after day.
I could jump in now. Two things.
Yeah.
First, I'm going to wrap up what I understood over here, and then we're going to jump into the first question. What I'm understanding, clarifying my understanding, which hopefully will also help everybody else, is what you're saying is really be authentic with yourself. It's all about authenticity. It's not about self-criticism, but it's about truly knowing where you are, even if you're not keeping Torah mitzvah, wherever you are, just really being able to sit with yourself. And that's what gives you some relief and joy, just being able to be authentic. It's not about putting yourself down. It's about being truthful.
What you're saying, self-criticism is not necessarily authentic.
Right.
Because those of us who have explored have found that often the self-criticism comes from the least authentic piece in ourselves.
Right. From fear, right.
Which is coming from wherever except ourselves in the deepest place inside. But the difference between self-criticism and self-shaming and self-bullying, and between the ability to sit with open eyes and look at where have I failed, where have I not, where have I slipped, where have I not. The ability to be serene and content within that's something that comes from our real selves. Right. But the bullying piece of ourselves, that piece of self-criticism, that's inauthentic, actually. That's another piece of criticism right there. I'm being inauthentic. I'm criticizing myself. Right? Okay.
Right. So that's
authenticity.
To separate for people, because everybody who comes to us, at least at Fresh Start, are very authentic for the most part. And then I think we'll jump into the first live. There's a bunch that are not live, but we'll first give a chance to the people who want to show their faces and ask their questions. Is that okay to move in now?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
So I had an experience this morning that I wanted to share. I was at Slichas and I was trying to say the words, but many of them did not resonate. They're like old words with there have been enemies that have pounded us, and a lot of historical old things that really seem small in light of the things that we're going through today in our own issues. And I just sat down, felt a little bit like Choni Hamagal. I sat down on strike and I started to cry, and I said to Hashem, I said, why do I have to get up to slichas while you sleep? That was just the feeling I really had. And then it's staying with me like all day. It's just, and it's not in a real, I still feel the love of Hashem very much, the Father. You know, I'm not okay going with an interpretation, a narrative of judgment and judge, but rather a loving, kind Father. But still, I feel like there's so many people, myself included, that are just struggling with being put in a place that some of us, through no fault of our own, can't creep out of, don't have the skills. Some of us do, thank God. Some of us are fortunate to have gone to Fresh Start and get some skills, but there are plenty of people that can't do that and just suffer every moment. And it's just, really? How? I don't know. I just feel so like the cry, the anger of Hannah to Hashem. It's just so hard. So I'm just trying to figure out how to process all that in light of being surrounded by everyone else's interpretation of Yom Din, and like you use the word judgment, and it kills. It scratches like a finger on a chalkboard. So this is just some feelings I'm feeling about this time of year right now. That's it. That's all I have to say right now.
There's one similar question that came in, which I think I'm going to add before you answer this, because it may be similar. Someone's asking, do you really believe that Hashem, like, are we really asking Mechila and Slicha, because do we really believe that Hashem is going to punish us after what we've been through in this world? Almost, do you really believe there's a Gehenna? How could Hashem punish us more even if we failed after the things we've gone through? Like you said over there, Hashem is sleeping. Like, we have been through so much. Is there a Gehenna? Do we really have to beg for forgiveness?
I want to go to both of these things. I think what Rabbi Yosef was saying, which was, I think, more of an outcry than a question, which I don't feel like it calls for an answer per se, because we don't always have answers. And clearly, the feeling of abandonment, which is in there, in that outcry, is something that comes up probably all year, but I guess it's triggered further by speaking of suffering that has gone on all through. And like you're saying, Rabbi Yosef, it's hard to be focused on other suffering or struggling of anyone when one has their own suffering and struggling to feel. Where does it leave us? Like you say, Hashem is sleeping. And those are feelings which come up there and which come up elsewhere also. Somehow, you're at slichas, waking up early in the morning and sitting there, which speaks of the fact that there's so much conflict inside. Altogether, I feel like anyone who's here, sitting here right now, is sitting here because they're attempting to make some sense of a big amount of confusion and conflict Because anyone who says, okay, I'm done with this, and I'm not sitting here about Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, I'm sitting here about Rosh Hashanah and Kippur because a piece of us is very, very connected to Yerusholayim and to Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, and a piece of us is very much in our pain, and to deal with both at the same time is a very, very, very big struggle. All we know is from Tzara Agro, and Tzara doesn't only mean how much physical pain or money something costs. There's emotional pain in searching and seeking out a relationship. The anger that one feels sometimes was the Rebbeinu Shalom himself. Just means you're still you're locked in a dialogue with him. Which again, like I said, that's what this is about. Rosh Hashanah and Kippur is about coming with your honesty to Hashem. What does your honesty look like? Does your honesty always look like, I'm guilty? Or does your honesty sometimes look like, how am I doing this even? And where are you? If David HaMelech could say, Keli, Keli, Lama Azaftani, that's the honesty of a human being who's sitting with Hashem and talking to him. That's not the dishonesty of, like I said, just putting the towels over your head and chuckling and not having the actual conversation with yourself or with the eventually. Now, when it comes to Gehenim and punishment and coming to Yom Hadin because it's Yom Hadin and I don't want to be punished, we can take this a step further. We can get to the next level of this, which is, am I worried about Gehenim, or am I looking to be who I can be? Because a big part of Rosh Hashanah and Kippur is that. It's the personal relationship with the Yerusholayim, as much as it hurts, as much as there are more questions than answers sometimes. Which is about what? It's about why I'm even in this world. Why was I put here? What was this meant for? I'm just a struggling, suffering human being. But our Emunah tells us, I was put here. There's something that is a massive goal and dream for me. There is a goal and a place for me to get to. Where is that? How can I get there? Can we go further in our own journey? Which includes our relationship with the Yerusholayim. So, Gehenim or no Gehenim, are we going to get punished? No. And therefore, what are we left with after that? Are we left with, therefore, I don't care? Or are we left with, therefore, I do care? And maybe I can strip away some of the anxiety and stress about this and instead focus on, where do I want to get? Where do I want to get? In the words of that question, am I asking Mechila from Hashem? Maybe. More importantly, in a sense, I'm asking Mechila from myself. As in, do I believe in myself that I can be in a better place than I am and I want to be there? Then whatever missteps I can look back on in this year, and no matter how much pain a person is in, we can still look back honestly at missteps. We make missteps. I hope. I hope nobody's perfect. So we can look back at our own missteps, or it doesn't have to be missteps. It can be further progress that I wish I would have made and that I wish I will make. Use that to catch up with my own self in the context of honesty and with the Yerusholayim. Good enough. There doesn't need to be any Gehenim for that. It's fine. There's plenty of it. Tova, like you said, there's plenty of our own Gehenims. We don't need any other Gehenims here for this.
Rabbi Bleich, I just want to chime in that Rabbi Yossi just wanted to point out that a lot of what you're sharing is he's been able to live with. It's more, as he writes here, but I can't bear seeing the helpless suffering so much. People that are young, people without awareness, people so deep in the abyss. Not that it changes the answer to your question, but I'm just adding a little more color to it.
The only thing we could add is that Moshe Rabbeinu asked those questions, Yirmiyahu Hanavi asked those questions, David HaMelech asked those questions. They still continue being Moshe Rabbeinu, Yirmiyahu Hanavi, and David HaMelech, even so, right? But they asked those questions. Whether it was, like I said, Loma Azaftani, which is paradoxical as could be, say, Hashem, why have you abandoned me? But I'm talking to you, so you haven't abandoned me. And I'm also a Navi. I know you haven't abandoned me, but I'm still going to express to you the deepest feeling that I have, which is you have abandoned me. And I don't care if it makes sense or if it's reality or if it's true or if it's false. It doesn't matter. It's the feeling that I have, and I'm meeting you, Hashem, in the place that I'm in. I'm reaching out to you from the place that I'm at. Reaching out meaning I don't feel you here, so I'm going to reach out and try to reach you. Because that's part of the relationship I'm in with you, is that I feel abandoned. I won't not feel what I feel or not express it. I will. And I will walk away not understanding anything, or at least not everything. But those of us who are sensitive to pain, it hurts every day to see even other people's pain. Forget about our own. And it's hard to live in this world. But I think that the big point here is, can we sit in the pain that we're feeling? Stay in it without escaping. Because otherwise, this world is a very inhospitable place. And it does turn out to be that way. Which is why some of us will find ourselves under a blanket more than we want to be. Because it just hurts too much out there.
So just a slightly different angle. I mean, obviously the questions are going to continue to be, similar, but this question's from alumnus in Eretz Yisrael. I got myself sick from listening to too many workshops on tshuva, because that's what my nervous system is wired to do still. How do I find and believe in the good in me? And how do you guide and be mechazik people like me to approach tshuva? And I think you may have answered this somewhat already.
Yeah, but I want to go further into the right. I want to go further into I put out a
Yochanan, we just have a couple of comments. I don't know if you just want to mention those. Eric has been writing, and he's just begging to be heard, or he wants to be heard. He writes, right, this is following what you were talking about before. Can we agree just to meet Hashem with all our pain? That's it. That's what he's asking. He said, can you grant us? Yeah. Right?
Grant us a permit. Once we meet Hashem, we're good to go. I see it.
Yeah.
I want to go to that in a second, but I want to join it up with what Yochanan just brought up there, which is, I put out something this year, a talk that I sat with a bunch of chevron, called Towards a More Mature Tshuva, or something else like that, which just addressing what whichever Yid that was wrote from Eretz Yisrael, which is, I'm wired to listen to speeches about whatever it is. Every one of us who grew up with that. And I'm not here to machavek anything and everything that's going on in Klal Yisrael, because it's hard for me or hard for a certain individual, and others maybe deal with it well, and that's fine. But there is definitely a deeper and more mature understanding of what this is all about, which goes less along the lines of that kind of anxiety and more along the lines of what kind of chizik, like he or she said there, can a person have if they're a deeper person and more sensitive, not only wounded, not only in pain, deeper and more sensitive. a personality that is able to feel and perceive more depth. So what it's about, like Ephraim was saying, is it's about bringing yourself to Hashem honestly. That's all. It's not about anxiety. It's not about yira. It's not about din. It's about encountering Hashem. How do we do that? We do that by the kind of work that we're doing here, which is taking down the fences and walls and facing our own frailty sometimes. And nobody is free of that. Frailty, weakness. It's who we are. We don't have to tell ourselves that we are strong, powerful, perfect, amazing. We may be, and that may be the part that we have not seen enough of. But we can also just experience our own honest frailty and be honest with all of our vulnerability and cracks, which we don't want to show the world necessarily. We usually don't want to, by the way. Show it to anyone, sometimes not even to ourselves, and stand there in front of Hashem with that. So can we have a permit that once we meet Hashem, we're good to go? Absolutely. That's what this is all about. A person who is in a place where on Rosh Hashanah, they're standing there with Hashem, with the pretenses off and the mask off and the body's armor off. That's it. That's it. That's the whole thing. Now, once the body armor is off and the mask is off, what's in there? It doesn't matter. I don't care what's in there. Maybe it's the worst garbage in the world, but you're there, you're on one page with the Debretziner, you're really there face to face, having a real encounter with honesty and genuineness. This is what this is about. So the world is full of pain. The world is also full of people who never take a real look in the mirror. So if somebody's able to do that, that's all. That's the whole thing. That's the whole story. So whatever words in the machzor do or don't connect with that feeling, okay. Different people are going to connect with different words or not connect with any words. We say them because they're in there. That's all. But what's the inner experience? The inner experience is one where we're able to have the strength to meet Hashem, not only after death or when Mashiach comes, today. To sit and to just be real with the whole thing. Bring the whole thing to him. Because that's what all of us want in our parents, which some of us have never had. It's what all of us would love to be for our children, which not all of us was able to do either. But that's what it's all about. So when we speak about a loving father, what's that about? Is that about having to hide or be dishonest? No. It's about being able to be honest and not hide and come with all of ourselves, which some of us have no place in this world where we can come to with all of ourselves, even those who have parents, even those who have good parents. Doesn't mean that they can bring all of themselves to any particular place. So is that what this is? Yes, that's what this is. So again, like I said, this is almost sublime in the human experience. The joy that I talked about before, like that Yid was talking about, when he said, I can face my own mistakes, was that. It was that you feel so empowered. I can do it. I can sit with me. I can sit with all myself. I can sit with all my feelings. I can be there with it. I don't have to run away. And if Hashem is there with you in that mix, that's what makes that into not just a psychological or emotional experience, but also a religious experience at the same time.
So wrapping that up is there's no fear of Gehenna. We don't have to be afraid of being punished. Our job is to just be authentic with Hashem. Very short. I don't have to sit here. Gehenna's in this world right here, right now. We're all going through it. And we could at least breathe and not think there's Gehenna after.
So this thing is going to go on to you.
I'm glad you said that.
Oh, yes. Well, let me say this piece also along with it. This thing is going out on YouTube. Not everybody in Klal Yisrael is in the same place. And different people have to hear different things. Why? Which one is true? They're all true and they're all not true. As in, it needs to be a full picture. Getting any little piece on its own is not a place to go. And it really boils down to where am I at and what will bring me to a place where I can feel motivated to make myself into the best person I can be. I told the story recently of the Bais. The Bais, he had two Hasidim sitting in his shul, and they were learning the Sefer Reishis Chochma. Reishis Chochma, anyone who's ever heard of it, is like it's the stuff of nightmares. It's the kind of thing that they talk about, like, Molige Zeiten, Reishis Chochma, what's in there, descriptions of Gehenna in detail, in full color. That's why nobody touches it these days. But these two Hasidim were sitting there learning it. And one of them was finished. He was under the table in a panic attack. And the other one was telling him, what are you going to carry away about over here? It doesn't actually mean it in such a way, you're getting a little too excited about this. And the Bais walked into the shul. So they asked him. So he turned to the fellow who was under the table, crawling in fear. And he said to him, don't worry, be calm. The Yerusholayim loves you to pieces. And he doesn't want anything except for the best for you. He embraces you with everything you have. So let's get the real context, he said. And then he turned to the other fellow and said, it's much worse than what it says in Yisroel. As in, different times, different ones of us need to hear different things. So all of them are true. All of them are true. But for here, yes. Here, yes. This is not about Gehenna, and it's a more sublime and mature approach altogether to what it means to come at this time of the year and make something out of ourselves. That's the real fear. The fear is not what will happen in Gehenna after I'm dead. What will happen now here? Will I walk out of the coming year and feel like, wow, that was a good one? Can I walk out of this year and say, you know what? I suffered a lot this year, but now that it's over, looking back at the past now, not bad. I stretch myself. I'm a bigger human being than I was before. I'm a bigger yid than I was before. I don't know that there are a lot of things that are more satisfying and fulfilling than that. And I don't know that there are enough things that are as painful as feeling like I'm not being who I am. I'm not being that person. I want to be that person. So who needs Gehenna in this mix? That's Gehenna enough, I think.
Okay. We're going to move into something a little more practical, a question that someone sent in. This is about, you spoke before about parents and having a relationship with their father. Somebody sent in a question. My relationship with my parents is so difficult, especially with my mother, not overtly, but it's so hard for me. The dread I feel near her is profound, and yet I'm hosting them for 2 weeks during Yom Tov, and I'm so charged, activated, not grounded with feeling them here. This feels terrible, and I feel like I'm a terrible person. Fill in the blanks, how I feel about myself. How do I handle this? What do I do?
Sadly, I know so many people like this. And in my work with individuals, I've had many times where people...
I think this is what we call the Yom Tov enmeshment in the Jewish community. Like, this is like, how do we deal with it? The expectations around the shuls, the other people are seeing us on Yom Tov. Do I go to shul? Do I not go to shul? Like, just a lot of judgment. And this ties into all that, the Jewish enmeshment.
Well, I guess what you're saying really is all of the obligations that come along with a Yom Tov.
Yeah, which, this woman has to host her mother, who triggers her like hell. And...
in other words, like on a regular day, we can figure out where we're at and do what we need to do or not do. And it comes with obligations. And like I said, I've seen endless situations where people who were working with themselves and doing so much better, and then they would come to a Yom Tov with their parents, and the whole thing went undreared. and it would take a month or two to get back to where we were at. And it's, as far as the practical piece of it, it's a very individual question, of course, but as far as the emotional piece of it, I wish there were easy answers. And I don't know who the person who asked that question, but I have known the people who have asked these questions. There aren't any easy answers. Only an individual knows what works for them. Like how much can they be present on the inside at such a time or not? But the part of beating oneself up, there must be something wrong with me if I can't just be with my parents and be nice. It's sad, because it's the kind of compassion that we have from the outside for a person. But on the inside, it's so hard to find it, to find that compassion and to know, no, this is not that somebody's a bigger tzaddik or I'm a little tzaddik in this sense. It's that I'm dealing with what others are not dealing with. My parents may never understand that, by the way. My parents may never understand that. And we know people who never will be able to have a conversation with their parents about any of this. And there won't be any resolution or closure on it. And whatever's going on is going on only on the inside. So to make this feel good, I don't know that I can. But to at least say, can we find compassion for ourselves like we would find for any other Yid in the same situation? If we had any idea about what they were going through. And again, most of the people who are sitting here have an idea. That seems like the only way to go. Again, on a practical level, it's very individual. How much can a person, yes to, not to, shut out, not shut out, disconnect, not disconnect, be present, not be present? Those are tough questions. But the least we could do is at least have the understanding and acceptance and embrace for it, at least for ourselves, like we would have it for anyone else.
I'm gonna jump in here. Just, we got a follow-up question. So, practically speaking, does the concept of Hayecha Kaidman apply in an emotional well-being when it comes to worrying about your family and your siblings and your parents and all that? How do you, is that a basis where somebody has to sort of look at themselves and realize, hey, if this is going to send me off the rails for a week or a month, if this is going to negatively impact my shalom bias, if this is going to make me not be the parent that my children deserve, can that be a guiding post, if you will, for how they know what they can and can't do and when it comes to them?
Absolutely. Not only can it be, it needs to be a guiding post. Because even without throwing in, it's going to impact other people instead of these people. Everything impacts other people when a person can't balance themselves and be grounded and healthy. So, yeah, people are limited. When I answered that question, it was only on the understanding that it sounded like from that question that person felt like there weren't any options to consider here. And she needs to host her parents, and that's the bottom line. But if part of the question is, does it make sense? Can this work? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do something that throws me off for a week, a month, 2 months? No. Nope. Surely finished. Of course not. And is a person's priority their own nuclear family, themselves, their spouse, their children? What's there to talk about? Absolutely. Sometimes, sadly, it's one's own spouse and children who are also on the other side of the scale to them, where Hayecha Kaidman is going to play in. And there, it's a little bit more complex because a person takes on responsibilities. But that's where we have to go with healing. Ultimately is the way to be able to deal with everyone in a way that they can heal and we can all be healthy together. But that includes one's own nuclear family. Like I said, one's spouse and children, when it comes to one's parents and siblings, that's not one's responsibility to take care of or worry for. That's not something that somebody took on in their life or obligated themselves to in any way. So that's a completely different situation. And sometimes feelings come along with, when it comes to siblings, especially when that was mentioned, that somebody feels like they're responsible to see to it that their siblings have a better life because they now understand that, or that their parents fix something. And all of these things are out of our hands. They're out of our hands. They don't fall within something that we can control or do anything about. Sometimes we can do something about it if other people are willing, other people want, and we can support and facilitate other people getting whatever they need. But we can't make it happen. We can feel the pain, though, of having lost them and of them having lost them. That hurts. Absolutely. That's a lot of pain right there. That doesn't come from ourselves. You can have plenty of pain from families, especially somebody who comes from a family where a lot of people may have been messed up. A lot of people may have suffered. A lot of people may feel like their life is a wreck now. And maybe I have found a way to move forward with myself. I have come to a fresh start and done hopefully more afterwards too, to heal, which often brings up sometimes feelings of guilt. Why am I the only one who seems to have survived and everyone else is struggling in the family? And maybe I'm doing better than some of the others. Or looking around and seeing siblings and saying, now I have to take this to them. I can't always. Sometimes I can't because I can't handle it. Sometimes I can't because they can't handle it. But very often, this comes up, Taka. And in that sense, Chayecha Koidman is not, I'm shutting everyone else out. It's not, I'm making them suffer. It's that I can't make them not suffer. But again, so the bottom line of this is Chayecha Koidman, the cheshbon with emotional stuff? Almost always, yes. Almost always the only cheshbon. Like I said, the only complexity is when it comes to one's own nuclear family, where that needs to play out with some kind of cheshbon of how am I ultimately bringing myself to a place where I can step in as a parent and a spouse and stop the cycle and be the one who brought my family out of that whole maelstrom.
A pretty strong question. How does one approach Rosh Hashanah if one has a sincere question whether or not Hashem exists?
So to me, the question is, how does somebody approach the fact that they have sincere questions whether Hashem exists? Without Rosh Hashanah also. And so I'm not going to get into a discussion of, how Hashem exists or not. Because, like I said before, these kinds of things are outcries, and they're coming from a place of pain. It's not a matter of a conversation of how do I answer my questions. We can have that conversation somewhere else if we need to. And there are plenty of other people out there who can have that conversation. That's not the point. It's, I don't want to feel like Hashem exists because I can't deal with what I'm dealing with. It doesn't make sense. It hurts too much. The whole thing is off the charts. The fact that such a person is sitting here and asking that question obviously says, yeah, but I want it to work. I want it to work. And at the same time, I also don't want it to work. And that's also good. We have these kind of conflicts in ourselves where it's so difficult. Which one is true? Both are true. And they're both coming from the deepest place in the heart where there's struggles and it hurts. How am I going to deal with Rosh Hashanah this way? It's more of the same painful conflict of every day. I was speaking earlier to somebody who was able in whatever way to use her talents to help others, be mashpia on others, emotionally, personally. But she has her own feelings to deal with, which hurt. And she came to the conclusion, or to a conclusion, or to a current conclusion for now, that much of what she's doing is taking her into a persona that she is not, and she doesn't want to go there. She wants to be herself, but she needs to here go into being somebody else while she is helping other people and become a professional. She doesn't want to be that. She wants to be herself. She wants to bring herself to all kinds of situations. If she speaks somewhere, she wants to speak as herself, as a vulnerable self, but she doesn't feel she's in that place. So she decides she's taking a break from doing any of that stuff. And then somebody came and asked, would you deal with a person who needs help? Kach v'kach. Or not? So she said, you know what, I'm going to listen to myself. Let me listen to my inner voice. I'm going to listen to my inner voice. Yeah, I really do want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. Then an hour passed, and she hadn't done anything about it yet. And she said, let me listen to my inner voice. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. No, I don't want to do this. So she picked up the phone and called back that person and said, I don't want to do this. I'm not doing this. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I wish I could help. I don't find myself in a position now to do this. And now comes the question. I can't trust myself. Can't trust myself. I have no intuition. Do I have any intuition? Listen to yourself. There is no self. I don't know what's going on here. Which one is the truth? Here's the absolute truth right here. They're both the truth. They're both the truth. They're absolutely both the truth. Which is, you want to do it? Yes. You want to not do it? Yes. And if there was a practical way to do yes and no, that would be the choice. But there is no choice that's yes and no. The choice is either yes or no. But inside me, it's yes and no. So now what? That's the pain of conflict, inner conflict. And that's why we try to ignore it. And that's the inner conflict, because whichever side I'm going to take is the only side I want to know about. I don't want to know about the side I'm not going to take because I'm losing on that side. Which is the side that's only gain and no loss? Neither. Which is the side that's only loss and no gain? Neither. They're both loss and gain. So which one do I do? And at the end, I have to take a decision which is going to hurt either way. That's also part of the pain of this world, by the way. So part of me doesn't want this whole thing and says, I don't know if Hashem exists. He doesn't exist. Part of me is sitting here chalishing to make sense of all this and find a way that he can exist in me. As in, again, like I said before, it's not the question of does Hashem exist out there in the world? That's irrelevant to me. What's relevant to me is, does Hashem exist in me? Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu. And that's not so easy. And I want to find a way to find him inside myself. That's Keli Kelam Azav Tani also. I want him inside myself, but I don't have him in there. What am I going to do at Rosh Hashanah? I don't know, because it's a real encounter with this painful conflict, which sometimes can be avoided and ignored, and Rosh Hashanah is a time it can't be avoided and ignored. So then we end up facing the pieces that hurt most.
Rabbi Bleich, as we wind this down, is there one idea, one pasuk, one feeling? We're basically looking, at Fresh Start. One of the things we try and do is to start giving tools. We have different lines that we use: ABC, always be curious, life. We have different, breathe. Is there one practical, either pasuk or something that people can go back to throughout life, but certainly over the next couple of days and the next couple of weeks, to help ground themselves, an idea or a concept that coming from you is Ola Gabehen, takes precedent to any other machshavas going on in their head, that they can rely on to find some comfort, a lift me up, a pick me up, and obviously it's in Torah, so it's true.
Yeah.
We're looking for a slight shortcut, maybe.
Okay.
Everybody on this call and everybody watching this has never had shortcuts. They've done the hard work. So go ahead, Tova.
Yochanan, is this going to be the takeaway? Because we have one question that I'd like to ask.
Okay, so ask it, and then we'll wrap up with that, Rabbi Bleich. So now you got a few minutes to think about it.
I don't want to. I actually don't want to forget what occurred to me right when you threw the curveball right at my head. Okay. That's what I really want to say. But okay.
So go ahead, Tova. Finish with the question, then we'll go back to this and wrap up.
Interesting question that came in. She said it's not related to the conversation, but she still wants to ask it. Is there a concept of a Jew losing the privilege of being part of Am Yisrael? I did experience, okay, this is going to be a little controversial. I did experience that in my psilocybin trip, that my mom isn't part of Am Yisrael. It had bothered me since, and I'm wondering if there's any source in Judaism that someone could lose being part of Am Yisrael.
What I've been saying here again and again, and what I attempt to live, by the way, is not avoiding anything, even when you're stumped or whatever else happens. I want to address that. But I saw a good line recently which said, I'd rather have questions that can't be answered than have answers that can't be questioned. And Yochanan, when you said always be curious, that's what came to me. When you was, I know that's not necessarily the way that's meant, but to me that's what always be curious means, is that I don't want answers that can't be questioned, even more than I don't want questions that can't be answered. The double bind that I'm in, just based on this exact question coming from where it's coming from, is that generally the questions here are, I feel like
somebody just asked Tova, this person's mother is
this
Jewish.
Person's mother, as far as we know, is Jewish.
Yes.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So I want to share something that I come across all the time with people who are healing. And that is that one of the most painful conflicts there is that whatever standard I hold my parents to, I have to hold myself to. And whatever allowance I give to myself, I have to give to my parents. So if I was hurt by my parents and I hate them and I'm angry at them, and here I am attempting to embrace my own self with compassion, what gets in the way of that is now I have to apply that there too. And I don't want to. But if I'm angry at my parents, oops, sometimes I'm going to look in the mirror and say I'm angry at myself in the same way. So is there an answer that just unlinks the two of those? We're still looking for it. The real answer is the difference between somebody who's willing to face an issue honestly, bravely, vulnerably, and explore the places that most of humanity never will. There aren't people who humble me as much as being in the presence of that. In all honesty, I feel like I'm in the presence of greatness when that happens. When I meet a human being who is vulnerable with themselves, I lose my tongue. So I said before, I want everyone to show their faces here. The milo that almost nobody did is that I didn't lose my tongue quite as much, because it's the godless, really. That's the greatness of a human being. And that's what makes all the difference right there. Go back to that question where, like, usually what we would expect to be grappling with here is, am I not part of Klal Yisrael? And so then we'll sit here and give the chizuk that you are. And sometimes it's, Is my mother not part of Klal Yisrael? My mother hurt me badly. That's all. My mother wounded me. If she's part of Klal Yisrael or not. And even if she's not part of Klal Yisrael, she also wounded me and hurt me. And if I was a goy and she was a goy, she also hurt and wounded me. And if she's a goy and I'm a yid, she also hurt and wounded me. Now what? Now we could sit in silence, and I wish we could sit here for a half hour like that. But that is not an escape. That's feeling pain that doesn't have easy answers and easy solutions and shortcuts and packages, nothing. That's the empowerment that I'm talking about. Of, I feel like I'm going to, like the woman mentioned, suicidal in that. And I don't know how she survived. I don't know. But somehow she did. Somehow she did. She kept herself alive in that. I don't know how. I wish I could say I'd never met anyone who was suicidal. Also wish that I don't say that. I have no regrets for meeting the people who, Baruch Hashem, I have. But that is not one of the fun experiences in life. At all. But the only thing we know about anyone not being part of Klal Yisrael is chorus. That's all. But that says it for specific things. And again, this is where the Rambam jumps in Hilchos Tshuva and says the only one who has the scale is the Yerusholayim himself in his mind. Malachim have no idea of that. Human beings have no idea of that. Because only your Yerusholayim knows what's going on inside a human being. So, honestly, from hearing the question about that mother, it sounded to me like there were moments where it felt more like she wanted it to be a mother's not part of Klal Yisrael. There are moments like she felt like she doesn't want it to be like a mother's not part of Klal Yisrael. And both of those moments are okay. But the real moment is the moment of I'm hurting, I'm bleeding in the worst way from my own parent. Nothing hurts more than that.
So one feels like they have a relationship with God, but does not want to go to shul or open a machzor. That's too triggering, does not want to daven, just wants to know that having a relationship in their heart is good enough.
Obviously, yes. Obviously, yes. And that's basically what I was saying before, is that that's what this is. It's a personal encounter with Hashem. In fact, Chassidim, they always said, in particular about Yom Kippur, that Yom Kippur is Einer allein im Wald. It's one individual alone in the forest. What does that mean? That means even if you're not an individual alone in the forest, you're still an individual alone in the forest. Which means all the people around you are irrelevant to your Yom Kippur. So what are you doing even in Shul on Yom Kippur? If you can get inspiration from that, that's why you're there. But that's what these people's role, all the people around you, is if they can help inspire you, perfect, terrific, amazing. But Yom Kippur boils down to yourself and Hashem. That's the whole thing. In terms of Rosh Hashanah in Shul, or Shul in general, which can be triggering to people, and I'm sure to more than one person who's on here right now as we speak. This Rosh Hashanah, this is the situation, and this Rosh Hashanah, all there is a relationship with Hashem inside their heart. That doesn't have to be a decision for next Rosh Hashanah, or the one after that, or the one after that, bis 120, Gesundheit, where we all want to metamorphose and grow and stretch ourselves and balance and ground ourselves and be healthy and be present and be able to heal from the things that trigger us and get to a place that's further. And I'm sure that we will do that. Anyone, though, who feels like that person this year, that's the answer. That this is what it is now. Because it's always whatever a relationship for this person today with Hashem looks like. What does that mean? Do we have to erase the Torah for that? No, there is a Torah. And still, a person who believes in the Torah and has the most amazing sublime goals, and sometimes doesn't have the most amazing sublime goals, but whatever it is, where we're at today is all there is. So Hashem says, yeah, come be present, come talk to me. We're having our personal encounter and meet up with each other. And you don't have to be machadish to me, Hashem says, where you're at. I'm there, I know. I said when I was in Fresh Start with the Alumni there, how when COVID was out in the world, the real fear and terror and anxiety, and we shut all our shuls down. And there was a video going around the whole world, which was so moving to some people, of somebody standing in front of the Aron Kodesh and notifying Hashem what's going on in the world. He said, Hashem, we don't want you to be surprised now that we're not going to be here in the shul for the next month or two, or we don't know exactly how long, but there's this thing going on out there. It's called COVID, and it's dangerous now to be here. So we're going to come in and say, I'm coming to say goodbye. We're shutting the shul. We'll be back. Now, like I said, I don't want to take away from the people who are very inspired by that, but there's something about that that's a little bit off because, yeah, you don't have to come report to the Rabbi what's going on out there. He knows that. And it's true on an individual level with every one of us. Where we're at in our space with the Rabbi Shalom, in our encounter with him, is not something he needs us to be machadish to him. He's there. He's there. Even when you say Lama Zaftani, he's also there. And even when you feel Lama Zaftani, he's also there. And even when your whole world is Lama Zaftani, he's also there. And he knows that too. So yeah, if that's where you're at, that's where you're at. That's your encounter with the Rabbi Shalom. And whatever you are holding by further than that must contain that exact thing, which is me and Hashem inside my heart, my relationship with him. And otherwise, even with shul and even with the machzor, again, do whatever you can do. But the real thing is what's happening deep inside. So let's try to make that happen. We can add more form to it, Gesundheit, but the substance is what we're all looking for.
But we're going to finish off with that question, a practical something that that we all take with us.
Okay, so
an anchor, I guess you could say.
In keeping with everything I've said here today, which is living with conflict, which is what I want to do. I don't want to oversimplify. I don't want to make believe that everything is all good or everything is all bad or everything is all sweet or everything is all terrible. Everything. There's no everything. Everything is a mix. So I want to take here two opposite psukim and then try to tie it together with the third one, which will hopefully bind them. One is what I said here a number of times now, which is not part of the official Yom Ne'erim liturgy, but it's Keli Lama Zaftani. And it's a posik that I feel more people on this matzav here together can use as their current or past connection with the Rabbi Shalom than some of the other regular psukim that I used. A posuk that expresses an outcry of feeling alone, rather than an outcry of feeling alone without a posuk, but where it's expressed in a pasuk and in the Torah itself, and from our greatest people ever, which is David HaMelech there, speaking in the name of the future Esther Hamalka. It's in Kapitel Chaf Bais. Aliyel Sashachar, which was speaking in the name of Esther Hamalka. That's one side of what one may feel on Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, which may be the place where they can have that dialogue with the Yerusholayim, which is an outcry. I'm alone. I feel abandoned. On the other side of this, I want to take a pasuk that is associated in our Sidurim with this time of the year, from the David Hashem Uri V'Yishi. And I say this all the time. And again, some people will connect with one of these psukim, some will connect with the other. Hopefully, the place we can get to is we can connect to both. And that's the pasuk of Ki Ovi V'Imi Yazavuni V'Hashem Yasfeni. In the first half of the pasuk, Ki Ovi V'Imi Yazavuni goes right along with the Keli Loma Zaftani, which is, my parents have abandoned me. How do I feel inside? The worst in the world. And anyone who's been abandoned by their parents feels inside not only in pain, but feels at least on a deep subconscious level, if not on a less subconscious level, I must be a rotten person if that's what happened. And that's what a child grows up feeling like, automatically and instinctively. Whenever a child feels abandoned, it's not my parents' fault, it's my fault. So Kiyomi Yazavuni means I'm the worst person in the world. Hashem Yasfeini. Hashem says, I don't care if you're the worst person in the world. I don't care if you feel like you're rotten. Sit on my lap. That's how Shalom Shafal Hirsch translates these words. Hashem Yasfeni. Hashem takes me on his lap. Says, come here, sit here with me, my Ziskite. I love you more than you'll ever know. And all of the hastorah that was created by your life story, your life experience with your parents or with anyone else. It's a hastorah. It's in the way. Hashem Yasfeni. Hashem says, I'm telling you the truth. That if we could strip away all of this injury, if we could strip away the walls that came up, we could strip away all of the falsehood that's in there, along with, like we discussed at the beginning today, the self-criticism that comes from a place of, not from a place of authenticity. If we could get rid of all that, you would see me and you would feel me. And some people can report exactly that. Having been able to, even for a short amount of time, be outside of themselves and instinctively, automatically feel the Yerusholayim and his reality and his love in an unbelievable way. So that's two ends of the spectrum. One is, I'm abandoned as could be, and the other one is, no matter how abandoned I am, you love me. And one more pasuk to tie this all together from the beginning of the David, which is Achas sha'alti me'es Hashem oisa avakish. Only thing I want in my life is what? Lachzos b'noyam Hashem levake b'echole, which is the yearning of a Yid for connection, for security, for attachment, for love, for closeness with the Yerusholayim. And that is a feeling of its own. The yearning to be home. 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 What's home? Home is where the love is. Home is where I belong. Home is where I belong. And many people never, ever in their life had ever. Because they lived in four walls with a family, but never did they belong. Like I said before, never did they have a place in this world where they could bring all of themselves to, because instinctively the child knows, if I bring this piece of myself here, I'm done. If I show this piece of myself, I'm finished. If I bring this piece of my personality, I'm finished. And it keeps going through life that way. So I'm abandoned, I'm rejected. Loma Zaftani. It's also Hashem Yasfeni. And in between, Achas Sha'alti, this is what I'm yearning for. This is the story of my life today, is what? Attempting to take myself from the feeling of abandonment to the feeling of Hashem Yasfeni. I have a home. That's where I'm at now. Not in, well, sometimes I'm still in abandonment. But I want to be on the road where my yearning is there. And that yearning, we're humans. We're not only neshamas, we're bodies too. And the yearning is not only to Yerusholaim, and the yearning is to a home, and the yearning is to parents. And the yearning is something that often can't sit in it, so anything will do instead of that. Food, distraction, anger, rather than polishing. But that's also a piece of authenticity. Feeling that yearning. So, wrap this up. The three psukim to me, spur of the moment, spontaneously, are these three. Keli keli loma zaftani, ki ovivi mi azavuni v'Hashem yasfeni, and achas sha'alti, oisa avakesh, lachzu is b'nayam Hashem. I want to feel close to Rabbi Bleich. I want to. This is for that person also who said, how do I deal with Rosh Hashanah? I don't know if there's a God. Why are you asking? Because I want it. That's why. I want to be able to feel it. That's where we're all at. I want to end though by Mamish taking another minute of everyone's time here just to say this concept and this place that Fresh Start is unbelievable. 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 I said I saw it when it was a gleam in Yechanan's eyes and Tova's eyes, and nothing existed. I saw it when it was a house. I saw it when it was halfway torn down inside. I saw it when it was built up inside. I saw it when it was in operation with no one in it. And of late, I was able to see it in operation with people in it. And now I'm sitting in this group over here, which, like I said, is so humbling. But it's just amazing that there's a place where human beings can come. If I spoke about a home, it's not enough to have a home for a week. It's just not. But it's also nothing to sneeze at. A place to come to where you can just appear and be there, and you don't have to hide. Kol hakavod, kol hakavod. So kol hakavod for creating a place like this, and kol hakavod for every single life that has been touched in this place, and every single life that's been touched by the people whose lives have been touched by this place, because I know that was a major part of what drove this. It wasn't only to save the individuals, it was to save their families with them. And it's Chodnish Kemvata. have the greatest hakaras hatov for the Yochanan, the Tova, and to all others who are involved there, for making a place like this, and on a personal note, my own personal hakaras hatov for giving me the opportunity to be involved at all in a place like this and in an encounter like the one we had here today. So I just want to wish everyone a gute, gebenchte, süße, freiliche Jahr, gesunde Jahr, with everything good, with real simcha, for real, with contentment, serenity, because that's the translations into English of happiness and of simcha that I feel are the things that we cry out for the most. And we should be zeichet, like I said before, to go into this year and to come back to a place like this at the end of next year and be able to feel that was a good one. I went places with myself. I am a bigger Yid than I was before, a bigger person than I was before, and more me than I was before. Amen. Ken Yeratzen.
Wow. Thank you, Rabbi Bleich. Thank you, everybody, for joining. And thank you for the kind words, Rabbi Bleich, and the chizuk to everybody who's made the brave trek out to our neck of the woods to participate in our program, and for the chizuk to us. And I speak on behalf of everybody at Fresh Start. We want to wish all of you a good convention year, and thank you for allowing us to play a role in your healing journey. We're always here for you, and I suspect we will be in contact soon with another alumni webinar. And have a wonderful Yom Tov, everybody.
Yeah, just one comment.
Yes.
The only thing that there was to answer to what I said was thank you. It's true.
It's true. Thank you. It's true. I still getting caught. Still getting caught.
Yeah.
All right. Yossi's laughing. I hope everybody else is laughing too.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's amazing, amazing. What a privilege and what an honor.
Okay. Very good. Zaygason. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you
Take
so
care.
much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.